So this is my first live broadcasting, and I would like you guys to comment down below if any modification can be done to this video. So today I'm going to talk about how to add an helper class in your Laravel project, and also about some problem I came across with. And this is kind of a general problem when you try to code in OOP. Constant expression contains invalid operations. So here, as you can see, it's a Laravel installation, and let's start by adding an helper class which you can access throughout your project, and there you can store your function which you need in various controllers so that your code can be only at one place and you can access it from anywhere. Okay, so usually I make my helper in here in the sibling of http. So let's see, new folder, helpers. Okay, that went wrong. In here. Okay, so we have now helper class, and now we can create a file there. Let's say so in this file, let's start a class. First of all, it's a helper. Let's save it first of all with let's say test or test helper. Okay, okay. Here you need to add to register. Okay, let's say that it has a function. Let's give it a function name print. Which returns some string. Okay, to register your helper, you have to go to config app, and the very down here you give an alias to your helper class. So you give alias, let's say test helper, and here you give the name of the class. That will be app helpers because it's in there, and the name of the class, that is helper, or let's make it test helpers. It will be more. Okay, so in test helper you are having, you need to use namespace use helpers. Okay, that seems good. I don't know why it's not showing colors, so let's make it a bit colorful. Huh. Strange. Okay, let's use this class in our controller which I have here. Okay, so this is a test controller, this is test environment I set, and if I go here and I say like that, so there you go. Now let's use that helper, use test helper, that's the name, and let's call the function. Let's make an object of the class first. So let's say it's a test object which will go on new test helper. Okay, and then with help of it I'm gonna call this function test print. Let's close this guy here. Okay, so let's make it like test object. Let's have a call of this function. Okay, this is good. It's good. Oh, sorry, my bad. I That's really okay. So I forgot to start the PHP tag. This is what you happen when it's your first time to live stream a video. Well, still it's not finding. That must be because of this guy here. Okay, so now it should be good. Nope, something is wrong. Namespace, sorry, you don't you have a namespace, sorry. Okay, 14. It's not finding it. Oh, so it's later. It was all capital, and there when I registered it, I made it very small, so that's why. Okay, there you go. So this is how you make an helper class. So you see that this is my helper. You go with the namespace, have helpers, and it depends upon what folder name it is. Then you define a class, of course, and you have a public function which you can access via any other controller. So after making the helper, whatever function you want, you make here. You go in the app, you register your helper, you may give an alias. This is not actually necessary, but it's easier this way because then all you need to use only is that word, nothing else. So you go into controller, you use that word, you make an object, and then you call that function. Another way of using it, how I prefer, if I don't have many functions in here and I don't have any variables, I just have a function which I directly use in the controller. I prefer to make it static. That means I would make this function directly static like this. In that way, when I call this print, I don't need to write these two lines. You can directly call the function statically like this. So in this way, it looks more, I don't know, cleaner directly to call statically rather than making object and then call. We'll do the same, of course. Okay, so that was our first motive which we established. So here you can register all your helpers and you can define all your helpers, sorry, and here you can register them and then you use in controller. Second problem, let's go back how it was. So second problem is, what happens is that let's say that you have a variable here, let's say testware, okay, and I am starting it statically something. This contains a string. Now let's say it's a private var, okay. Now here you are returning the value. I will say, let's say get test var, okay, just an example, and let's make it a bit cleaner. Okay, that's better. So get test var, and here I'm returning the value of that variable from the class. So this test var. Okay, now in here I make get test var. So I'm returning it, and I am dumping it. Oops, it remains like that. Test object. Okay, so it, you see that it shows the value something. Now what happens sometimes is that in our helper or in any other class, doesn't matter, you don't start it statically. You want to use some variable which is defined in your env file. Now let's say that I have defined a variable here, my var something, and I want to use the value of this particular thing in the helper class. Usually it happens when you have, I don't know, some key in there, you're connecting to some API and you have some sensitive data, you want to have it here, but in the helper you want to use that key. So what you do is that you say, okay, let's start this variable like this. Nothing wrong, looks nothing wrong, and there is a function which just returns its value. Seems perfectly fine. However, when you run, you get an error. Constant expression contains invalid operations. Now I came around this, and seems that it's a very basic logic of OOP here. When you start a variable in a class, which is actually a property, you can't start it with a variable because existence of this variable is not a certain thing, and this is basically needs to be a constant. I mean, when the class starts, the class needs to know what's the value of this variable, and if you try to define it with help of a variable, it will throw that error. To resolve this problem, we use constructor. You just define the variable just like that, and then you define the constructor, and then in the constructor itself you can give the value to that variable in the same way you were giving directly. So here it can be my var. Okay, now what happens in this case, that when the class starts, is okay, you're not defining it at all, and then when you are making the object of the class in from wherever controller, you'll have to make the object in order to call the function. This particular call will call this constructor, as you know, in OOP, and it will define it as a myvar. So now if I save this, I refresh, so you see you get something. And now of course if you change here, I don't know, something else, you refresh and there you go, I don't know, something else. So these were the two tasks I wanted to share with you guys, and this helper thing, it really comes in handy when like I myself use it mostly to format the response. You have to return the response in many projects from many controllers, and maybe you have some specific kind of responses, like from error you have some different object, from success different object. What you can do, you can define here the functions like public function success, error, information, and then from the controller you can directly statically call them. So that really comes pretty much in handy, and this error really disturbed me a lot, sorry, and that's why I wanted to share with you guys. So that was about it. Please leave your comment below. I hope you enjoyed. This was my first time. So see you in the next live tutorial. Here it ends.